I'm Sam,
And this is Gabe.
and this is Coaster Wars.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're bringing another coaster battle to you today. Why? Well, I don't know why, but we are. um, Today we have a Ejector versus Floater Airtime part whatever part we're on.
I don't even know at this point. They all get so mixed up in my head.
Yeah, I know. Two bull themed roller coasters. Who would have thought? I never
I
realized that
didn't
until
even
now.
realize that. That is so funny.
Two good coasters, two very, very good coasters. One, I think, is a little bit more personal favorite type thing.
Oh, yeah.
And the other one is just a very, very good roller coaster.
It's so
So, two roller coasters I'm excited to talk about. Let's just say that.
Oh, yeah. I was excited when we started recording today. I'm like, I'm going to be excited for this episode. This is going to be fun.
I think we should not waste any more time, then.
Oh, yeah. Let's get started.
All right. In the blue corner, standing at a height of 181 feet and reaching a top speed of 70 miles per hour, hailing from the trees of New Jersey and the intimate gem it is, El Toro. In the red corner, standing at a height of 202 feet and reaching a top speed of 73 miles per hour, hailing from the farm fields of Gurnee, Illinois, and the B&M gym it is, Raging Bull. Let the fight begin. Alright, so just a quick little thing here. We have reached our number 2 coasters, and mine will be El Toro.
And mine is Raging Bull.
So two really, really good roller coasters. Two roller coasters that are, I said this in our last podcast, I said in their respective divisions of roller coasters, they are considered to be the best. El Toro being a wooden roller coaster, and then Raging Bull being a B&M Hyper. They are considered to be the best of those specific categories.
Oh, 100%. And when we talk about Raging Bull, so Raging Bull is mine, and another reason why it makes such a spot in my list is really a sentimentality value. Six Flags Great America is my home park. Raging Bull is one of the first really big roller coasters that I've ever ridden, and it holds a very special place in my heart as one of my favorite coasters, as just being like, I've ridden this thing like 100 million times.
The only other coaster that we probably have more rides on would have to be American Eagle. Besides American Eagle, we have ridden this more than any other ride ever, and there's good reasons for that. It is a layout that just never gets old. You can ride it over and over and over again, and then you get off and you're like, let's go do it again.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
It's just so much fun. It's such a creative layout for being a B&M Hyper. This is a roller coaster that you could almost say is a predecessor to Fury 325, a coaster in our last episode. I think you could definitely say that. You know, a creative, more unique layout than a traditional B&M.
It's funny that he actually says that, because I watched the POV for Fury 325 because it is a coaster I haven't ridden, and I was kind of one of the first thoughts that popped into my head is, this kind of reminds me just a little bit of Raging Bull, and it's very true. Raging Bull, so to talk about B&M Hypers, this was one of the first to ever be built. In fact, it was the second to be built, and the only reason we can say that it's the second is, I believe the first was Apollo's Chariot, and it was a matter of a month's difference between these rides. They were both built in 1999, and what Raging Bull had going for it is, when it was built, it had to be built in the pocket of space that they were given. They couldn't just go with the standard out and back layout with this coaster, so they had to get more creative to fit the coaster into the spot that they were given, and as a result, even though this coaster has amazing floater airtime moments, you also get some extra forces thrown in there with some laterals and some turns and a figure eight that really spices up the layout of this ride and gives you some really good pacing.
Yeah, it's a pacing roller coaster, it's a G-force roller coaster, and it's an airtime roller coaster, which you can't traditionally say about B&Ms. You could usually say they're an airtime coaster with maybe a turnaround or two or a helix maybe, but not on the same level that Raging Bull is. And I think that's why for me I put it above all of the other hypers that I've personally experienced. It's definitely a little bit of a hot take. There's some people that would definitely disagree with me. I call those people wrong, but um, this roller coaster is just it's one that holds a very good place in my heart. Obviously, it's on my top 15 as well, a little bit lower than where you have it, but it's a coaster that I hold near and dear to my heart. And it's a roller coaster that I think a lot of people do. And it's an underrated roller coaster. And I think I watched, here's a little shout out to El Toro Ryan's YouTube channel. Kind of got this whole thing started for me, or gave me the ideas at least. The way they described it, they don't build them like they used to. And that makes me sound old, which I'm not. But that's kind of a true sentiment about this roller coaster. They don't build them like this anymore. And I think that's why I just love it so much.
We talk about with B&Ms how they've sort of gone into this, and I said this in the last episode, they've gone into this cookie cutter kind of playing it safe kind of thing, but like you said, you don't get that with the beginning B&Ms because of course they're still starting out and they're still trying to figure out what is their bread and butter.
B&M when they were first developing as a company was actually really innovative and we talk a lot of stuff about B&M, but when they first started building roller coasters, between their hyper model, their invert model, their stand-up model, their floorless model, that was things other roller coaster companies weren't doing. So yes, they kind of have fallen into the whole cookie cutter thing, but that's because they had to figure things out first. Like, they were very innovative when they first were developing as a roller coaster manufacturer.
Yeah, and I don't want to knock B&M as a company. It's not, they don't make bad coasters. That's not the thing. When we talk about top 15s or the best coasters out there, we talk about ultra elite, super innovative, absolutely creative layouts that do something really interesting. And so B&M is they're really good general public roller coasters. And they're really good line eaters. A lot of their coasters are really high capacity. And in all, a lot of them are all really fun. They're not bad coasters. It's just when we talk about the best of the best, not every single one of their coasters really fits that mold. And I do believe Raging Bull is one of the best roller coasters out there.
Yeah, and like I said, I think Raging Bull is underrated. But yeah, this was innovative for the time. I mean, if you really think about 1999, there wasn't coasters over 200 feet. There wasn't coasters of this magnitude, this size, and it really was becoming a new thing. You know, this was still before Millennium Force, before I-305, before Fury 325, before every Giga coaster. This one was first. And the only coaster really before this to reach the 200-foot mark was the coaster out at Cedar Point, Magnum XL 200, which was way before this one even. And, it was innovative for the time. For 1999, this was an innovative new design for B&M. And that's the point I was trying to make, is that when B&M was growing as a company and developing, they were innovative. They were very innovative. They had coaster models that no one had ever done before. And I think that's something we kind of forget about with B&M, is without them, some of the progress that has been made in the industry wouldn't have happened.
Oh yeah, and I think that's a really good point to make, is sometimes when you're talking about these coasters, you really have to talk about them in the context of the time that they were built in. And Gabe is totally right. Nowadays, we have coasters that are 300 feet, we have coasters that are 400 feet, we have launch coasters, and we have all these other kind of models, and we're sort of spoiled. And when this coaster was built and the time that it was built, it really was the latest and greatest thing out there. So we have to take that into consideration when considering the level that these coasters are at. And for it to still stand at the spot that it does in this day and age, I think is a testament to the kind of ride it is.
Absolutely. Why don't you get into the layout a little bit and talk about what this roller coaster really does?
Oh yeah, so it is a 202-foot chain lift. That takes you into a small pre-drop, which then leads into a 208-foot drop because this ride does go below grade. It's 65 degrees. It brings you to a top speed of 73 miles per hour. And that drops you right down into that tunnel, which brings you up into what is called a hammerhead turn. And basically what this is just a 180-degree turn that brings you all the way back around into the direction you came in, which leads into a brake run that's up on a hill, which drops you into another airtime hill. You get another hammerhead turnaround to the left, a mid-course brake run, another airtime hill, which leads into the figure eight finale of this ride, which brings you into the final brakes.
Yeah, the biggest difference that what you're calling the hammerhead turnaround is it's not an overbank turn. That's not what it is. That's kind of basically what it is you're heading straight, and then you pop up, so you get a dose of airtime, and then the track banks, and then you get some really good G-forces before it straightens back out, and then you get a pop of airtime as you head back towards the ground. It's not what an overbanked airtime or an overbanked turn is, like on Fury 325. It's not that. It's a little bit different. And it's another kind of turn or whatever that you don't see on other B&Ms. And I think it's another reason why I call this a unique layout is because they're not just, go up, overbank, turn, come down, go up, airtime hill, overbank, turn. It's not that. It's not a traditional hyper. And I think that's the biggest misconception about Raging Bull. Also, why I love it so much is it isn't traditional. It's something different, something more unique. We talked about this in the last podcast. I love unique experiences. I love unique designs, and that's what really Raging Bull is.
Yeah, and when talking about this layout, something we also have to really mention that is a unique feature on a hyper is that figure eight at the end. And I believe this is one of Gabe's favorite parts of the ride. You get some amazing G's as you're just whipped through this figure eight that slams you into those final breaks. It is an amazing finale to this ride.
Yeah, really what it is it's sustained G-forces. It is sustained G-forces followed by some really aggressive airtime moments. And I think that's why I love it so much is it's the roller coaster experience. But this. It's the roller coaster of forces is what it is. It's some really aggressive and positive G's followed by some really aggressive negative G's, and you don't really get that zero in between. It's kind of like negative positive. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's why it's one of my favorite moments on the roller coaster is because you get that kind of yo-yo or bouncy ball effect that is just so much fun and such a great moment on this roller coaster.
Oh yeah. We really love talking about this ride. We could sit here and talk about it for hours, but we really got to kind of switch gears here and talk about El Toro because I know we're going to love talking about this ride. So let's just do it.
El Toro. Yeah. Okay. El Toro. So what is El Toro? What makes it so special for a wooden roller coaster? And why are we even talking about it? Well, El Toro is not a traditional wooden roller coaster. It is a prefabricated wooden roller coaster. Well, what does that mean, you ask? Basically, Intamin took the idea that they used to build their steel coasters and said, why not apply it to our wooden roller coasters? So basically what they do is they build all of the track in-house, and then they put it on truck beds and truck it out, and then it gets put together. What this basically means is they can assemble this roller coaster like a giant puzzle. So instead of having to build everything from the ground up and do everything by hand, they literally just put it all together as pieces. And what this does is it makes the track way stronger, it makes the support system way stronger, and it allows you to get the forces of a steel Intamin coaster on a wooden roller coaster. And that's really what sets this apart from other wooden roller coasters and why it is so special to the roller coaster community. But really what it comes down to is ejector airtime is really what it is. Sustained ejector airtime. Basically take a B&M Hyper and then times it by 10. And that's what you'll get when you get El Toro. It is just sustained ejector airtime, and it has the single best ejector airtime moment on any roller coaster I have ever personally experienced and will ever personally experience. It is just a standout moment. What moment are we talking about? Obviously, it is the Rolling Thunder Hill. It is one of the craziest moments on a roller coaster. It is one of the most painful moments on a roller coaster. So be prepared. This is not a comfortable ride. Just remember that. Some people forget that about this ride. You know, it is from 2006. It's not brand new anymore. So it is not a comfortable experience, but it is definitely a thrilling one.
Well, and I didn't see this too much in my research, but what trains did they use? Are they Intimate's like own designed ones?
Yep, they're Intamin trains. They're designed specifically for their wooden prefabricated track. They are 3 rows with 2 seats in each row. Yeah, so they're specially designed though for their wooden roller coasters. So it's not it's not like they took another train from a different roller coaster type and slapped it on the wooden prefabricated track. It is specific to the wooden roller coasters from Intamin.
Okay. We have to talk about just the crazy pacing on this ride. It is a wild, intense experience from start to finish. That one ejector airtime hill that Gabe is talking about, the Rolling Thunder Hill, is literally the best moment on the entire ride. And I don't think, like, even watching a POV on this ride, there are, like, no dull moments on this ride. The one spot that I think we talk about that could be a potential dull spot on this, one spot where it's 2 sort of small airtime hills in a row, but the only reason that seems like a dull spot is because the crazy intensity of the rest of this ride. So it's not boring. You do have the small airtime hills that pop you up real quick, and so it's literally just the rest of this ride is so absolutely insane that even just a nice element like that seems like a dull spot on this ride.
Yeah, there's not a lot of roller coasters in this world that can have only 3 elements that make an ultra elite roller coaster, but this is one of them. If you really come down to the brass tacks, it's the first 2 Camelback airtime hills and then the Rolling Thunder Hill moment that make this an ultra elite roller coaster, and that should really tell you how good those 3 moments are. And yeah, there is a couple dull spots. The part that I always talk about is the turnaround after the 2 Camelbacks, the massive bowl-like turnaround as you head back towards the opposite direction from which you came. And the reason it's a dull spot is because the airtime you get at the top of each section of that moment isn't on the same level as the rest of the ride. The G-forces are insane. Let's not forget about that. It's just the airtime part of it isn't the ejector that you would hope for from the rest of the roller coaster. But, like, if you were to take that moment out and put it on any other wooden roller coaster ever, it would be a standout element. Mm-hmm. So, it's just one of those things where they kind of bit off a little bit more they could chew with the first 2 elements, so then the third and fourth don't quite deliver on the same level. But with that, let's just talk about the layout right away. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Go ahead, Dad.
All right, so you first drop off that drop. It is a 176-foot drop, and you pop up into the first ejector airtime Camelback Hill, and you get some awesome, awesome forces. And that is followed up by a second back-to-back ejector airtime Camelback Hill, and that's where you pop up into another airtime moment. Basically what happens is you pop up, and then you twist and bank down towards the ground. You descend, turn a full 180 degrees down, dive beneath the that little airtime pop, and then you pop up into another airtime hill after that, which is, like I said, one of the weaker moments on the ride. After that, you dive down into a speed airtime hill, which is really good floater, but the train almost travels too fast through it. if that makes sense. It carries so much speed to the element, you don't quite get the airtime you would expect from it. But it's still a really cool moment. And then you kind of pop up into another small airtime moment before banking to the left and shooting up into the legendary Rolling Thunder Hill, which is the best ejector airtime moment on any roller coaster ever. And after that, you enter into the twister section. So you kind of you bank to the left, then you twist, transition, bank to the right before twist, transition, banking back to the left before banking back to the right, and popping up into the top part of it where you kind of pop up, bank to the left, and then back to the right, and then pop up into the final breaks. And on paper, you're like, well, that's not a crazy, insane layout. But it's very unique because you get just about every force a roller coaster can really throw at you. You get ejector airtime, you get floater airtime, you get positive G's, you get laterals. The only thing you're really missing is an inversion and hang time.
Honestly, like, this ride doesn't need it. It's already, it's an all-around amazingly paced. Every element hits you in the face, and then, like Gabe said, it's got those couple that just, like, every element hits you in the face. Well, these ones hit you in the face with a chair.
Yeah,
it is so much more intense. They hit you so good. And as me and Gabe said, like, I think back to our Goliath episodes, we talk about how that ride only has 2 inversions, but it has one of the best 0G stalls in the world. With that alone just makes it an amazing ride. So an entire coaster, as long as it's got a good layout and it isn't boring, if you have some really, really good elements, it can just pump it up to an elite level where other coasters just don't stand with it. And that's what El Toro does. It's a really good all-around roller coaster, and then it's got a couple of those elements that just hit you so freaking hard. And it's amazing every single time that you ride the coaster, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is it's really the diversity of elements on this roller coaster, because you have the first 2 sustained ejector camelback hills, and so you get a sustained ejector airtime, and then it's followed up by some really good positive G's and some decent floater airtime. And so not only are you getting ejector, you're also getting floater, and then they throw in those G-forces about halfway through. But then we got to talk about that twister section after the Rolling Thunder Hill. It really brings this roller coaster all together into a full, complete ride experience, because now, as you're heading through that twister section, you get some more floater, but you get some really, really good G-forces, some really, really good pacing moments, and then you get those quick, snappy transitions that give them a really good dose of laterals and whip. And you don't get that on other wooden roller coasters. Most wooden roller coasters are floater airtime. Let's just be honest here. It's floater airtime, maybe some laterals and a helix. So this roller coaster really takes a wooden ride experience and brings it up to the same level as a steel coaster. And I think that's why, for most people, it is a ultra elite roller coaster. Because there's not another wooden roller coaster besides maybe Goliath that comes even close to this. And, well, Mystic Timbers, but Mystic Timbers is still a traditional wooden roller coaster. And it's still a traditional ride experience. This is not. This has just about everything you can get out of a roller coaster, like I said, besides inversions. And it's just so good. It's just so good. And I think that's why it is just loved by all. And like I said, it does have a couple moments that are what you consider a dull spot in the ride. But for the fact that this still makes number 2 on my list, should really tell you what kind of ride experience you're going to get.
Oh, yeah. Before we run out of time here, there is one thing that we must mention when we talk about intimate prefab wooden roller coasters, and that is the intimate fart. To explain
Oh,
what this
yes.
is this is the sound that this coaster makes on all those ejector hills. And that's literally what it sounds like. But to kind of explain what it is these wooden roller coasters have a set of wheels on top of the track, but also on the bottom of the track to literally keep you on said track, because if it didn't, you would literally fly off of it. But as a result, those wheels end up hitting the bottom of the track, and it makes it, the only way to describe it is literally a farting sound. It's this sound it makes, and you can hear it, like, it is a loud sound too. If you're anywhere near this ride as those trains are going over the airtime hills, you will hear this sound. And I wish I could describe it better, but it's just something you need to actually experience. And I remember Gabe telling me about it, and I kind of giggled. But then when I actually heard it, I was like, oh my god, that is an intimidating sound that this ride makes.
Basically, what it is the airtime on these roller coasters are so violent that as this roller coaster pops up into an airtime hill, it is such a violent moment that it pulls the upstop wheels into the track so hard that it actually makes a noise, which doesn't really happen on other roller coasters. And that's what it is it's just that violent moment of that force being applied so hard to the train and to the passengers that it actually creates a sound as it goes over that element. And it's you can actually hear it while you're riding the roller coaster, which is kind of insane.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's just it's how you know it's applying those forces, and that's just how good this roller coaster is, and I love it to death. I think one thing we do kind of bring into just a little bit is it is rough. It is very, very rough. I don't recommend a wheel seat on this roller coaster at all. We actually recommend the second to last row instead of the very back row. The back row is a wheel seat, so if you can get the row in front of that, then you're no longer sitting on a wheel seat. It's a lot more enjoyable experience. But yeah, it is rough. It is very, very rough. And obviously it's had the incidents from the past. They just gotta have to bite the bullet and retract this damn thing at some point.
Oh yeah.
But this is Six Flags we're talking about. So good luck with that. But it is rough. It is rough. Keep that in mind. It is from 2006. You know, it's over 10 years old now. And just, you know, it's almost 20 years old. Let's be honest here.
Yeah.
And it does show its age. It does. It's not a smooth experience. It's not a comfortable experience. I iterated this earlier. So just remember that when coming in to ride this.
Oh yeah, but again, it speaks to the caliber of ride this is, where we can look over that uncomfortableness and still place it at number 2 on your list. It's absolutely insane. So it's just go ride it. That's all I can say. Go take a trip to Jersey and go ride it.
Absolutely, definitely. With that though, we definitely got to pick a winner. Hands down, I'm sorry, Raging Bull. I love you. You know, you're my baby. But El Toro is just another level. You know, I would call Raging Bull elite. El Toro is ultra elite. In this one, I'm taking El Toro. I'm taking the Wooden Giant.
And I'm gonna have to agree with you. El Toro is just so freaking good. So freaking good every single time that we rode it. We rode it so many times that day. And to like explain the roller coaster of emotions that me and Gabe had to go through to try and deal with this park. We were planning this as a birthday trip for Gabe in July, okay? And we wanted to go to this park, and so we were tossing up between a different couple parks, but we finally decided
We were originally going to go to Hershey Park. So what happened was, at this point in our planning process, El Toro was still shut down from its previous accident. King Nakao was shut down. And I said, it's just not worth going to the park if we can't ride those 2 roller coasters. Let's go to Hershey Park instead. I said, there's bucketless rides. They just opened Wildcats Revenge. Let's go to Hershey Park. Like, that's a top tier park. Don't get me wrong. Hershey Park is. In fact, you could probably argue overall Hershey Park's a better park than Great Adventure. And so I was excited. And then all of a sudden I'm like, El Toro's open? Wait, what? Hold on. really? Like, I didn't think it was going to open this year, to be honest with you guys, like what I was hearing. And I was like, oh my God, I got to go ride this thing before it breaks down again. And then, out of a stroke of luck, King Ka opened up like 3 weeks before the trip. So then I was like,
gods were out there and like, all right, it's his birthday.
Yeah.
We're going to cut him a break. We'll give it
Yeah.
to him.
So we said, screw it, we're going to Great Adventure, we're going to ride El Toro while it's still standing. I'm like, the next accident's probably going to get the damn thing tore down, so let's go ride it.
Oh, yeah. And, like, to understand how quick this decision was, I had already booked the hotel for Hershey Park, and then I had to, like, quick see if I could cancel it and switch over to New
Yeah, that's how we plan trips, but but yeah, it was just. And here's the other thing: El Toro is my 100th coaster credit, so it is a milestone coaster for me. And that was the other reason that we were tossing around what I wanted for my 100th, and I'm like, well, Wildcat's Revenge would be a great 100th roller coaster, as well as Sky Rush or, Comet, the history behind that roller coaster, the little wooden roller coaster that could. But yeah, it was one of those things where it just worked out so nice. And then we get there too, and it was so dead. I mean, we rode out Toro multiple times when it was a walk-on.
Oh, yep. Yeah.
So it was just a really good day at the park and such a good trip. And I love this roller coaster. It's so good, and I can't wait to get back to ride it. Maybe next year they're opening that new Vekoma launch boomerang type coaster, super boomerang, whatever the hell they call it. So we might have to make a trip back just to ride the new coaster, the new age Vekomas that are finally coming from overseas. I cannot wait for them to build more Vekomas. But yeah, this is definitely a great roller coaster.
Oh yeah. So next week we have mine and Gabe's #1 coasters, and it is going to be a good matchup, I think.
The battle for the championship belt.
Sounds good. So join us next week, everyone.
Yeah, another coaster you haven't ridden that I'm bringing to the table. Woohoo!
Yeah, but I have the reputation of this coaster precedes itself very well, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway,
how do you feel that 2 members of your family have ridden that coaster and you haven't?
It's really. I've said this about other rides, though, that I'm so mad that I haven't ridden them. I'm just gonna have to, like, take an entire year off and just go ride coasters, apparently, because, gosh.
Well, at some point, we gotta get to Europe, because there are some of the Intamin roller coasters over in Europe that they've been building. Vekoma is another one. Vekoma, the new age Vekoma. The Vekoma Reborn is what I call it. That they're building over in Europe, and some of the mock rides over in Europe, we have to get some experiences on. So that is in the future, hopefully, probably not for the next, couple years. But at some point, we are going to make it over to Europe to ride roller coasters. A lot of people go over to Europe to go to all of the different historical places. We're going to go for roller coasters. So
we're those people.
Yeah, we're those people, but... yeah, join us next week for the Battle of the Champions.